Hey guys, this is John, and I'm playing ratakela in the 15-minute pool on ICC. I will play knight f6 against ratakela. He's 1809, and let's play g6 this time. I'm actually kind of interested in trying a different opening this time around, and that opening will be the Grunfeld. This is totally spur of the moment. Was not thinking about playing the Grunfeld whatsoever. I don't think I've ever played the Grunfeld from the black side, but it looks like fun, so we're going to try it. He chose a fairly passive line with e3, and I know black can often play c5 very early if white does this. Most of my knowledge of the Grunfeld is from the white side. I'd say like 90% of it. What I mean by that is like things I'd be looking at from the white side. I'm much more comfortable with that than looking for things for black. Although you kind of have to know both, right, if you're going to play an opening well. So I think I'll just castle here and maybe wait and see if I want to play c5 or not. He goes queen b3. Okay, so he's going to maybe make the decision for me. What is interesting is I looked at a game of a student of mine in this line recently, very recently, in fact, and that student did queen b3 a little bit earlier. I'm kind of wondering if, because now I want to choose between c6 and e6. And I'm wondering if e6 is a good move here. Because in the game that my student played, where he was white and played queen b3, he played queen b3, and if his opponent responded with e6, his idea was queen a3. That's a line in the Grunfeld, which would stop black from castling had black not castled yet. But since I've already castled here, I'm kind of thinking e6 might be a decent move. Then again, c6 is probably a bit more of my flavor of the position, so I'm going to go with c6. I don't want to take on c4 yet. I'd rather maintain this stronghold. If he takes on d5, I don't know that this is that great of an idea. Now we have like an exchange Slavy type of position where I don't think black has any huge issues. In fact, I think the queen will be misplaced on b3. I'll play knight c6 here. And I think it'll be misplaced because he eventually wants to advance his A and B pawns, like play A3 and then B4. And his queen could get in the way of that. So here I'm thinking just knight A5, attacking his queen and defending B7 again so I can get this piece out. I could also play B6 and bishop B7 maybe, but I think I'd prefer to start with knight A5. Just don't want to give away the e5 square necessarily. b6 is also probably pretty good though. Maybe a6 even. No, I'm going to play knight a5. I'll go with my original intention. We'll see where he puts his queen. If he puts it on c2, I would like to get a rook to the c file ASAP. Ratakela's peak rating in the 15-minute pool is, let's see, 1934. Achieved recently. Plays queen b4, that's interesting. I'm trying to keep the queen active. I think I'll play bishop d7 against that. What else could I do? I could play the knight back to c6, but if I play the knight back to c6, he could either repeat or play queen a3, more likely. I'd like to kick his knight out of, or his queen out of b4 at some point by playing like e6 and then rook e8 and bishop f8, but that takes several moves. I don't know, I might play knight c6 just to see where he goes. I understand I might be like giving him a free move with queen a3, but I don't think the queen is necessarily so well placed there either. Again, it blocks his pawns. Okay, he goes back, queen b3. Maybe I'll go b5. b5 intending, or rook b8 intending b5. I mean, getting ahead of myself. That would be super interesting. Yeah, I like that move. I didn't think about this the first time around. But b5 can be played as it stands here, maybe without even any prior preparation. b5, and if knight takes b5, my idea is a6. However, he has queen c3 or c2, probably c3. c2 wouldn't be as good because of knight b4. So maybe that move would be, it would need more preparation if I'm going to play b5 in this position. b5, knight takes b5, a6, queen c3. Yeah, it's just not quite working for me yet. I might give in and play a6. But if a6, I'm slightly concerned about knight a4. It's really too bad about b5, knight takes b5. I don't want to dwell on that continuation, but it really looks pretty good. I'm trying to force it to work, but it might just not work. And I may have to come to grips with that fact. What about just e6? e6 is pretty sensible. Yeah, e6 would just allow me to play bishop d7 next, so I'll do that. I couldn't play bishop d7 right here because he does have knight takes d5. My bishop would be interfering with my queen. And he plays a very normal move, like as expected. Let's go bishop d7. So now b5 is back on the agenda. So my knight is no longer loose on c6. Moves I would expect out of him here are rook to c1, either rook fc1 or rook ac1. Probably, if it were me, I'd slightly prefer rook fc1. But he plays rook ac1. Knight a4 was another move I thought he might try. So here I'm thinking b5. I'm still liking that move. It just looks a little awkward for him after b5. I'm going to do it. Because he can't take the pawn with his minor piece, either minor piece, because I have a6. My plan is to try to cramp him, like go either b4 or knight a5 first. I might play rook e8, so that after knight a5 I can go bishop f8 in the event of like queen b4 or a3, or especially b4. Queen a3 probably wouldn't be successful because of b4. I'm almost over this cold. I feel like one more day and I'm going to be totally over this cold, but I'm still pretty stuffed up. I hope it's not coming across in the recording too much, but I've been trying to get lots of rest, drink lots of liquids. Vitamin C, you know the drill against colds. I'm glad I didn't get this cold a weekend ago, because that's when I was playing a tournament, actually. That would not have been fun. So knight e2, I can play knight a5 and try to get my knight into c4, but most likely he's intending to take that knight on a5. Knight e4 is interesting here. Yeah, knight e4 has some merit, because if knight e4 and bishop takes e4, he's giving up like his good bishop, the light square bishop, and after I take, this knight might not have too many good squares. Yeah, I'm going to do that. This move looks good. I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. I'm down on time. Not an unusual occurrence in my standard games. Knight e4 is useful, just opening the bishop and also controlling c5. Oh, one other benefit of playing knight e4, I might be able to go knight d6 and then to c4. Maybe I can do that. Because that c4 square is ripe for one of my knights to infiltrate and anchor itself on. He's played a lot of sensible moves so far. Nothing like too surprising, I guess, but... Okay, here I can take and then play the knight in to a5 if I want. What else? I could play something like queen b6 with rook fc8 to come. That looks very normal. f5 maybe. f5 is very interesting. Kind of leaning towards queen b6. It's a fairly non-committal approach. And it maintains a lot of good things about my position. If queen b6 and he takes on e4, though, I take. He would have knight g5 then. With my queen on d8, he doesn't have knight g5. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe take on d2 and then queen b6. Kind of looking in that direction now. Yeah, let's do that. Don't want to think too long here. Now I can play knight a5 and get into c4. I can do that. But I can also play queen b6. And then after, like, say, rook dc2, play rook fc8. Maybe with bishop f8 to come. Looks pretty good too. Yeah, let's go queen b6. c5 is a weak square. So I didn't go into this line without checking to make sure his knight can't easily get to c5. So he's going to be using that square immediately. But now when I go rook fc8, ooh, actually, I'm sorry, he's threatening this pawn. I was going to say, when I go rook fc8, I'll be threatening bishop f8. But I have to deal with this pawn first. So maybe a6. What about knight a5 again? Knight a5 is just looking pretty good, right? Knight a5, queen b4. Now let's play knight a5. And if queen b4, maybe I'll just move this rook somewhere where it won't be traded, like d8, and I'll be threatening bishop f8. I think rook c5 was a little hasty by him. But he is playing quickly, so he's already built up like a 5-minute time advantage. Whereas I'm getting closer to having to just play a blitz game, basically. He should probably put his queen on d1. That way it's not blocking his rook from retreating. But queen d1, I've got so many good options. I mean, just knight c4 is good there. Doubling, I'm sure, is pretty decent. I think I'm slightly better in this position. Not hugely so, but... Yeah, so here I'm going to play rook fd8, I think. And see if I can get bishop f8 in, if I can sneak that move in. I mean, his logical defense would be to move this rook away, like rook to c1. And then bishop f8 anyways, he'd have to play queen c3. I can chase his queen, like b4. Or actually, just rook c8 would trap his queen in that case. Yeah, I don't think he sees that bishop f8 is a threat. So that's why I will play it now. He can go knight e5. But the nice thing is I don't have to take his rook right away. He's pinned, so I can just let it linger. I mean, if knight e5, I could even play my knight back to c6 if I wanted. I'll probably play bishop e8, though. I like bishop e8. That move just loses a rook. Yeah. Full rook. Well, rook for a pawn. He definitely cannot move that rook. think he'll probably resign here. Not much to play for after taking on b6, and he did resign. Okay, let's have a look at this one. So the line I was referring to that I looked at with my student recently involves, after bishop g7, white playing queen b3 immediately. And one of the major points of this line is that if e6, white could play queen a3 and prevent black from castling. So that was kind of in my head in the game continuation, where he played knight f3 and then I castled. c5 is also, I think, possible here. And if d takes c5, I believe black plays queen a5. And if white continues like munching pawns, there's problems with the knight on c3. Like I believe knight takes d5 would be good here. And if queen takes d5, bishop takes c3. Pawn takes c3, queen takes c3 with the fork. So I'm aware of stuff like that in the Grunfeld. I mean, c5 is often a move you play even with pawns on d4, c4. So, and by the way, those who are unfamiliar with the Grunfeld, the overwhelming main line is for white to capture on d5 in this position. And then after knight takes d5, play e4. Knight takes c3, b takes c3, then bishop g7. And it's like a hypermodern opening where black will start firing against white's massive center with the help of moves like c5 and knight c6 and sometimes bishop g4 if there's a knight on f3. So that's the main line, but there are several systems where white declines to capture on d5, either doesn't capture on d5 at all or delays the capture until a later moment. So this is one of them. So I just chose a safer move, castles. He played queen b3. Now I'm pretty sure e6 or c6 are acceptable here. And he took on d5. I don't think that move aspires to much of an advantage. It'd be better for him to play a bishop move, either like bishop d2. Like bishop d2 I think would probably be a good move. He could play bishop e2 or d3, but one plan black has in order to try to simplify here is to play d takes c4. Notice I only do this move once he's already moved the light square bishop, because I want him to take two moves, burn a tempo, in order to recapture. So then after bishop takes c4, play b5. Very similar idea to like a semi-Slav. And after, say, bishop e2, play a6. And black's plan would be knight bd7 and c5 to try to equalize the pawn structure. So I was aware of that idea, but it turned out it didn't really need to be contemplated because he relieved the tension he took on d5. We have a position that resembles an exchange Slav with some key differences. Like one, I fianchettoed my dark square bishop. That doesn't happen for black in the exchange Slav, usually. Also, his dark square bishop's locked in, so that might be kind of a wash. There's bad points to both of that. He has played queen b3. I don't know. I mean, the queen does pop out to b3 in the exchange Slav, but usually it's for like a direct attack against b7. And b7 is guarded here, so I tend to think he's probably just going to lose time with queen b3. That said, I don't think this position is, very far from equality. Let's just see what the computer likes here. I did spend a little time thinking in this position. Okay, it actually does prefer the rook b8 move, or it did for a second. Queen d6 is interesting. I didn't think about queen d6. I probably should have, because in a lot of lines of the exchange Slav, black does play queen b6. Yeah, this has the benefit of guarding both b4 and a3. I mean, developing the light square bishop makes sense, but I have to mind my b7 pawn, so that's part of the reason behind rook b8. The other reason is to push b5. b6, I bet, is okay, too. I was a little hesitant to play b6 because I don't know if I want to make these weaknesses on the queen side, and moreover, I think it's better for black to aspire to a6 and b5, stake out more territory over there. So, knight a5, and then queen b4. Yeah, and here I went back. I mean, I did this with the realization that he could play queen a3 if he wants. But I didn't think it made a huge difference whether the queen was on b3 or a3. Yeah, and actually here, the engine says bishop g4 if this is played, because that would attack his knight, and yeah, I think position is fine. I no longer have to worry about queen takes b7. So, queen b3, rook b8. He went h3. So I wanted to play b5, but I think he can take if I do that. Although the engine is maybe saying otherwise. a6. This is the idea, right, to pin him. But he has this move queen c3, attacking the knight on c6. The engine says I can play here. Why is that? Knight a3, this is all the farther I looked, really. And I saw that I wasn't winning a pawn or anything. But knight b4, I guess I have good compensation, according to the engine. I can see that. I mean, there's open files on the queen side. My development is a little bit easier than his. So I could definitely see that. So instead, after h3, I just played a useful move, e6, solidifying my center. He played bishop d2, I went bishop d7. I'm going to turn this off. Rook c1, and here I played b5. I just kind of get the feeling if his moves are a little too routine. I mean, it's nice that he's not burning time, but like, no move he's really made thus far stands out to me as being particularly good. Let's say they're just like very, very normal moves. Not that there's anything wrong with playing normal moves, and especially in a 15-minute game, just playing stuff you're comfortable with. But I think his subsequent play was kind of influenced by this pace that he's been adopting here. I mean, at various points, he just played moves that are kind of the first moves that spring to mind, like rook fd1, for instance. And he landed in a difficult position. And also the rook c5 move coming up looks like a first reaction move that turned out to be kind of useless. Let's just see what the computer has to say about this moment where I played b5. Because now that my knight is defended, it's very nice because he can't take on b5 either way. And I have a6 in either case, exploiting the pin on the queen. Yeah, and if knight takes b5, same thing. So I really like this move, b5. He played knight e2, and I did get into e4. I think the timing on this move is good, because if he takes and I take, this knight doesn't have a good way forward. It'd have to go back to like h2 or e1, because all those other squares are covered by my pieces. But he played rook fd1. I just took the bishop pair, and then played the queen out. Okay, I see the engine agrees with a lot of these moves. Yeah, now I have the bishop pair. I mean, my loose plan is to play rook fc8 and probably knight a5. Rook fc8 is very helpful due to that bishop f8 move. My bishop doesn't have a lot of future on the diagonal here. I mean, sometimes black might think about playing e5 in order to open up the bishop, like trade off the d4 pawn, increase its bishop scope. But more than likely, I'd like to play rook fc8 and bishop f8. Yeah, and this is a first instinct move that's just it's too short-sighted. It doesn't do much. If I had no dark square bishop, then this move is much stronger. He still might want to keep that square open for like his knight to go to, but yeah, this is a pretty big mistake in my opinion. You can see the evaluation starts going up in black's favor. I did play knight a5. Yep. Queen here. Yeah, and rook fd8. Okay. I don't want to play rook fc8 because he can trade, and then there's no bishop f8 pinning resource. So I play rook fd8, sneakier. I defend this piece. It's a loose piece. Always good to overprotect loose pieces. And then bishop f8 is on the agenda. Yeah, and actually I don't know if he can do much about that at this point. He might be in too deep already because there's a line. Turn this off for a second. If he plays rook c1 here, bishop f8, queen c3, I could just move a rook to c8 and his queen is trapped. It's just boxed in along the c file, and I control all of these squares. So yeah, it's very possible he just has nowhere to go with his queen anymore. Bishop f8's coming next move no matter what. So that seems to be the case. So his big mistakes were rook c5. I would give that like a dubious mark, maybe even just a straight up question mark. And queen b4 is really bad. Yeah, he has to go back to d1 and then probably stage a full-scale retreat with this rook soon. Yeah, already you can see his position's bad. I think rook c5 would deserve a full question mark, and queen b4 is like 2 question marks, maybe. I don't know. I mean, maybe one. It's a continuation of his last move. It's just a poor setup altogether. So bishop f8. Yeah, and he took. I was expecting knight e5. And as I said, if he had played knight e5, it's an active move. It doesn't really do much. I probably would have played the move the computer suggests, just back to e8, and kept this pin alive. Because maybe I can go knight b7 and attack c5 again while he's all bound up. Or just f6, like kick his knight out next move. I could take my time. But yep, as it stands, he took on b5. And bishop takes b4, he's going to be down a rook. I think he was only banking on me playing this and then him taking here, which is also very good for black, but not as good as the game. So, okay, hope you guys enjoyed that one. And yeah, I'm glad I was able to play a opening I don't really play much with the Grunfeld Defense. Very good opening, by the way. Very dynamic opening. I think it's an opening that you have to invest quite a bit of time in if you want to understand it, because it is so dynamic and it requires so much understanding of nuances, especially with move orders. But a high-quality opening. I always have a hard time getting an advantage against it when I'm white and I'm facing a good player too. So, hope you guys enjoyed that, and thank you for watching as usual. And please leave me any feedback in the comments. Talk to you guys tomorrow with another standard game. Bye, guys.